What do Pirates of the Caribbean and pregnancy have in common? Hi, you're listening to the secret podcast of the worst pregnant person. This is my first pregnancy, and so far I'm terrible at being pregnant, so I started this podcast to complain. So, from about week 6 to now, and I'm just coming to the end of 12 weeks, the experience of becoming hungry in an instant has been wild. That sudden switch from feeling all right to empty in an instant has been a steep learning curve. And with the sudden hunger brings the sickness. So when this happens, I have mere seconds to shove something in my mouth, usually a cracker, to dull the sensation. I did read recently that eating little and often helps with this. So this is the curse of the black pearl, especially from week 6 to 10 for me. I was alive, but unable to be satisfied. Food was disgusting, but I was so hungry. Eating and drinking gave me no satisfaction, just like those poor pirates on the Black Pearl. Who knew I'd be empathising with a bunch of fictional pirates during pregnancy, but here I am. Captain Barbossa and I should start a support group, Pregnancy and Pirates, an undead skeleton and a terrible pregnant woman. I was so unprepared for this feeling. To be honest, I had no idea that this was a thing, and it's inspired me to talk about all the other symptoms I wasn't prepared for in this episode. So, I've always been scared of pregnancy, and I thought that I would have a rough time postpartum because I have PMDD, premenstrual dysphoric disorder. And this means I'm very sensitive to the fluctuations of hormones in me. So when I had my period, this would happen about 3 days before, maybe a week before. And being sensitive to the ups and downs, the fluctuations of hormones brings extreme symptoms or quite bad symptoms. So you can feel really anxious, on edge, keyed up, depressed, teariness, hopelessness, sensitive to rejection, and there are lots of physical symptoms as well with PMDD. So before I became pregnant, I read on forums that PMDD disappears during pregnancy. So I was like, sweet, this is great news. But I didn't put 2 and 2 together about the first trimester. And it makes sense, of course it makes sense. Hormones are constantly shifting during this time. And there's the introduction of a brand new hormone, HCG. I hate HCG. This is the culprit of pregnancy sickness. HCG and I do not get on. HCG can fuck off. And now it actually is. It's starting to decline. It starts to decline after 12 weeks. But it's the steep rise that I think, as I've read and researched, that causes you to feel so nauseous in the first trimester. And of course, if you have PMDD, you're going to feel these fluctuations in the first trimester and get some PMDD symptoms as well. So alongside some of the PMDD symptoms I'm familiar with, here is my current list that I've made of all my other symptoms during my first trimester. So number 1, no appetite. I felt this at the very start. Even before I tested positive, I started to lose my appetite. And then the weeks after, I still lost my appetite. And then from week 6 to 10, when I was going through the nausea, I just didn't like food. Me and food didn't get on very well. And that was very sad because I do like food. I like eating. Number 2, waves of sadness and crying and feeling hopeless. So I get this during my luteal phase anyway with PMDD, but I did have a good few solid days and moments of uncontrollable crying, feeling really sad and feeling quite hopeless. It's a very unpleasant feeling, especially when you want to be pregnant and you want a child. It's like a very contradictory feeling, but because I've ridden the wave, surfed the wave of PMDD, I know what it feels like and I know how to ride it out. So I'm able to kind of like logically say in my mind, okay, I know this will pass. But for someone who hasn't experienced that during PMDD, and if they experience it for the first time during their first trimester, I can imagine that's a really scary feeling to feel for the first time. Number 3, small bursts of energy, mainly at night, lasting for about an hour. So this was during the worst weeks for me. That was from 6 to 10. And I would feel a burst of energy and some hope for about an hour in the evening. And this gave me a little bit of respite from the nausea I was feeling. And it did help me hold on to the fact that this too shall pass. Number 4, nausea. I covered this in my first ever episode of this podcast, but yeah, from week 6 to 10 and a little bit beyond that, I felt absolutely rubbish. Nausea was my life. I was being really worn down by that. It's horrible. It's a horrible feeling. And to tell you the truth, it's actually made me quite scared about the future. If this pregnancy goes to term and everything goes well and I decide that maybe I want to be a parent again in the future, I know what's to come. And I think me going into it this time feeling like a bit naive and not knowing is much better than actually knowing what's going to happen. Number 5, constipation. So this happened at the very beginning for me. So I think it was about 2 weeks after I found out I was pregnant. My bowel movements disappeared. I don't think I've ever been constipated in my life. And this was very difficult for me because it was also making me feel sick and it was making me feel really uncomfortable. So I had to go to the pharmacy and they gave me some Lixido, which was gross. You dissolve it in water and you drink it, but it's not very pleasant to drink. But I hear kiwis do a good job with constipation too, not the people, the fruit. So yeah, kiwis and prunes. Prunes quite a famous laxative. But yeah, that completely surprised me. I was like, what is going on with my body? Number 6, no motivation. To be honest, I'm still struggling with this. I feel lazy and sluggish. But I'm surrendering myself to this because otherwise I'll make myself feel bad for not being as productive as I usually am, and that's just not possible at this moment in time. Number 7, cramping. So at the beginning, I had lots of cramping. It wasn't painful, but I could feel it. And that took me by surprise, but I guess it makes sense. And leading on to number 8, even recently, I feel a dull ache where my womb is, and I guess the feeling of the womb growing and expanding is quite normal, but I never imagined it to feel like that being pregnant. To be honest, I didn't even really think about that part. So yeah, that's taken me by surprise a little bit, just like the dull ache sometimes I get where the womb is. Number 9, headaches. I never get headaches. Well, I never had headaches before pregnancy, really. I never really get them. But in the first trimester, my head was pounding quite often, which was a surprise as well. Those pesky hormones doing their thing to your brain. And number 10, I feel like I've had a constant cold for weeks on end now, and this has surprised me. I've been congested and I've had so many bogies. It's just constant. And I looked this up, and apparently you can have more bogies during pregnancy. Of course, it's the hormonal changes making this happen because of the rising estrogen and progesterone levels. This increases blood flow and swelling to your nose, your nasal passages, leading to excess mucus. And for me, this has been pretty constant. You might be able to hear it in my voice at the moment, actually. I do sound a bit nasally. I suspect this is not going to go away. So yeah, I just feel pretty bunged up a lot of the time, and there are a lot of bogies in there. So I'm constantly blowing my nose, and I had no idea that was a symptom. Even like in the past, when I've known pregnant people, pregnant women, they've never said that that was a symptom. So I was completely blissfully unaware. But I guess it's one of the lesser symptoms, to be honest. I'll take this over nausea any day. As you know from episode 1, I hate nausea. And number 11, which is the last one I'm going to talk about in this episode, is my boobs. So I kind of knew that I kind of was aware that my boobs would change. Everyone says, oh God, your boobs get really veiny, they get big, they get sore, your nipples get really big like saucers, stuff like that. But actually, from the day I found out that I was pregnant, my boobs grew two sizes, two cup sizes. So I had to go emergency bra shopping because every time I was putting on one of my old bras, like it just didn't fit. I was spilling out. And that has been an interesting. My boobs have always been quite small, which I've liked. But now they feel heavy and they are very weighty. This is probably too much information at the moment, but I'm holding them now and like just underneath where my rib cage is and letting them like balance on the palms of my hands. And they've never been so weighty before in my life. I've never been able to really, do that and feel them. So that's been eye-opening for me, yeah. And they have become really sore at times, but at the moment they feel a bit tender to touch, but they're not like incredibly sore. And I can imagine that they're going to grow a bit more. So yeah, that one hasn't surprised me because I was aware that was going to happen. But some of the ones on the list that I've just mentioned have really taken me by surprise. So enough about me. Let me know if you have had any of these symptoms or if you have any other symptoms I haven't mentioned. If any of them have taken you by surprise, where you're aware of them, especially if this is your first pregnancy. But I do understand that each pregnancy can be different. So maybe you experienced one pregnancy a certain way and your next pregnancy a different way. So I'm really interested to hear from you. Let me know in the comments. Please do. I'd love to create a little community here around pregnancy and all of that. And that being said, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for listening to the second episode ever of the secret podcast of the worst pregnant person. I hope that you're taking care of yourself. Hang in there if you're going through the dark days of the first trimester. Really do hang in there. There is hope. Unless you have HG, then get yourself to the doctor and get on that. Anyway, I'm rambling. I'll see you in the next episode. Bye.